Welcome back to Y.D.O.C Live. These are your hosts, Brandon and
Caleb, it's been a minute.
dude. It's been a minute. Yeah, I mean our videos have been coming out, but it's been a minute since we've been in here recording. So, stoked to be here with you. Obviously,
Man, we're getting the technicals right too. I think we kind of figured out why. Well, I did. I kind of figured out why. It's kind of been hard to upload on time.
You know it's gonna be a journey. We ain't no professionals. I'm not technology advanced at all with this stuff. I mean, when it comes to like phones and things like that, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But then when you start talking about storage and mixing and all that, and I'm out the door.
Yeah.
I'm out the door. And then you're different as well. You got coding on your side, but you don't do none of this.
Bro, I hate it when it comes to like space and all that, especially on the phone. You know, it gets annoying.
Nah, stupid. Don't understand it. Don't care. But yeah, so we're back.
How's your
Super
week been, bro?
stoked. It's been good. You know, just got back from Tennessee.
Tell us about that.
Dude, honestly, amazing. Just the music there and like everybody that's like inclined there is just amazing. Like you don't find a person in Nashville that can't sing. So when you got somebody like me go over there and you're like, ugh. So, but man, it was just a joyful trip. Got to see my grandparents who moved out there. Got to take my girl. That was pretty dope.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. So just a super fun, blessing trip. So it was a blast. What
That's
about you?
good.
How's your week?
It's been all right. It's been all right. You know, me and the close guys know what's up, but it's been all right. I can't say it's been definitely been good to meet with the guys once a week.
Oh,
And
yeah. So we started this thing called Battle Zone that kind of like helps us through like temptation and things like that. So we've been doing that, and so
yeah,
that's been fruitful.
yeah. So it's been good to meet with those guys and just grow in fellowship. You know, so it's been good. There's been some bad, but it's a work in progress.
We're not perfect, so
Definitely not.
And speaking of that,
So today we are actually going to be talking about gentleness. When we first started the pod, this was one of the first topics that came up, just because this is something that I was kind of working through,
and I struggle with. I'm not the most gentle person, and I'm very like blunt, hard to the point. But
and I don't think there's anything wrong with being blunt. I think that's a lost art in our world, but
But
I think it's the way
there's-
it's delivered.
yes,
Yeah. So I'm same boat. That's something I'm learning every day. So I guess what my first question for you, Brandon, is what is gentleness to you?
ooh, gentleness to me would be walking alongside somebody. And the reason I say that, and I've touched on it before, but it's like, for a lot of you who don't know, like I was fired from a church, and so like I've been gracefully like walking through things like that. And yes, there was a hard thing that happened, but after I was fired, there was such love and compassion as Jared and Josh, like Josh, the one who fired me, walked alongside me. And I think gentleness for me would just be when somebody's at an all-time low, you go to an all-time low with them. And we've talked about this before, but it's a different idea. And then also is like if somebody messes up, who am I to call to judge them for their mess ups? I think it's a missed idea and concept that people can mess up and hurt people and stuff, but the way we go about it and the way we respond is really going to define how a Christian is.
Yeah.
So gentleness in my mind is going to be love. Like, are we open to love and be there for people through those moments? And so a verse that I really liked was in James 3:7. The first thing it says is, but the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy, good fruits, impartial, and sincere. So, I mean, right there, the first thing it's saying is the first act is always supposed to be love.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if we're in those moments and truly just walking alongside people and like understanding, like a lot of the times in society, our first response to things is like quick to anger.
Yeah.
And so,
Hey man, you know what I told you, right?
yeah. So Kayla's gonna bring it up right now. Is last week we were supposed to record
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, but I was under the impression because we changed like this whole dynamics of our podcast.
Yeah, it was just miscommunication.
Miscommunication.
Yeah.
However, Caleb came to the podcast studio. I didn't have any service on my phone, so I wasn't getting his texts or his calls. And so I'm out of town,
Dog,
and this boy is in the podcast studio waiting for an hour.
Nah, I was like, dude, bro, I was pissed.
He was
bro.
mad.
And the thing is, like, at first I wasn't pissed, bro. Right? I wasn't pissed. I was like, you know what? I was kind of pissed, but I was like, dang, maybe something happened, you know. And then I see my boy texting in the group chat. I was like, it wasn't the same day though. It was a different day.
No, it was a different day. And
But-
I was like, there's nothing that can justify this over text, and nothing ever good happens over text. So I was
Yeah.
like, I'll text Kayla or I'll tell him in person what happened. But the problem is I texted in a group chat and nothing, he didn't hear anything from me. So that was the problem. I should have been like, Caleb, listen, I'm going to talk to you more about it, but I just want to shoot you a text right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I should have done, but I'm very bad at communicating. And
It's all
thankfully,
good. It's all good.
Caleb showed me some gentle love in the moment.
Hey, bro.
Because
I'll tell you right now, bro. I was pissed. Like I was really pissed. And you know, before like not even like when I was in like high school and even like a little bit in college, man. When anytime I got pissed, and obviously I'm not saying I would ever cut you off because you're my guy. But I used to.
I'm
cut
about to say,
people.
I just said today that you're probably gonna be one of my best man.
No,
And,
I'm not. No, I'm not saying that, bro. Relax. But I used to like, man. I used to have a hot head, and you know, it was just because you know I felt like you know I don't know if I'm your friend, you know, you shouldn't disrespect me, and I won't disrespect you because respect should be reciprocated, you know. And you know, I was hot, and I thankfully, you know, my mom and you know, everyone in my life has kind of helped me along the way, but I really try to hold my tongue when I'm upset and angry because honestly, so many things could have happened. And there's so many other outcomes as to why a specific circumstance happened. And I don't like to jump to conclusion. I don't like to take things personal. That I took personal.
well, because this is like it's something that we're doing together.
Yeah,
and, you know,
yeah.
and there was an expectation that wasn't met. And you know, I think this is a perfect example of a verse. And so let me just say this verse real quick.
Shoot it off.
2 Timothy 2:24 through 26, it says, "And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kind to everyone, able to teach, patiently enduring evil, correcting his opponents with gentleness." And I think that was a great way. It's 'cause Caleb told me on Sunday when I saw him, he goes, "Bro, I was pissed." And he was like, "I didn't say anything to you on Thursday." And I was like,
Dog, I looked straight, bro. He tried looking at me. I seen it. Didn't even look at him, bro.
No, yeah.
It was
And
cold
so-
face.
but at moments, I think that's at moments gentleness.
Yeah,
Because if we just go and react in our ways instead of
Mhm.
processing it with God,
yeah,
then it's not going to be in a gentle act.
and you know, because sorry, I didn't mean to. Cut
No,
you
I
off.
was just going to ask you, what does gentleness mean to you?
What does it mean to me? Well, before I get into that, I did want to say, you know, I value my relationship with Brandon. No. I'm serious. I value my relationship with Brandon, and I don't want to say anything in the moment that I'm angry, to where then it ruins everything. Like that's not something I want to do. Like wisdom would say, keep your mouth shut and allow it to play out, and that's what I did because
You know, I didn't even think about it. I think you just said it, kind of hit it on the mark for me right now. I didn't even think of it like this way. A big way of gentleness is wisdom.
yeah.
For us to be gentle, we have to be wise also.
You know a good verse?
Oh, come on. See, come on.
Proverbs.
See, we're back in it today, ladies and
sir.
gentlemen.
So Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." And then Proverbs 15:4 says, "A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit." And, you know, it's being gentle in the moments where you could really just pop off, you know, and a lot of people would. But it's being gentle in those moments that truly, you know, stirs away wrath, restores relationships, and brings people close together. Because ultimately, the gentleness is there. You know, the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. All of that is evident in us so that we can also restore others to Christ and be restored in our relationships with each other. And I think just like every other aspect of the fruits of the Spirit, gentleness is a big part. Now, what is my view of gentleness? I think when it comes to gentleness, it's is possessing, strength, possessing, you know, strong will, being able to um, be overly strong or very strong in a certain situation, or in certain circumstances, but the ability to self-control it, to be the ability to control it and be self-controlled.
Mm.
I think when it comes to Jesus, um, he just like he spoke about, he met us where we're at. He met us exactly where we're at, but he had every right to not do that. I mean, he had every right to just let us go our own way and allow his judgment to come over us. But he met us where we're at, and he even says in Matthew 11:29.
Mother,
You took mine. I got
come on with you. I'm so sick of this.
But Matthew 11:29, he says,
"Take upon my yoke."
Yep, and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. And Jesus was he was the strongest man on earth. I mean, like, he was the strongest man on earth. He was the manliest man on earth. When you look at like manliness,
And guess what? He wept.
and he wept.
Jesus wept so you can weep.
Exactly. But like when you look at manliness, when you look at someone who's a man, you should look at Jesus, because he was that. He had the power to call down angels. He had the power to raise people from the dead. He had all that power, and yet in his love and his wisdom and his grace and all that, he was gentle towards his enemies. He was gentle towards those that were opposed to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we look at gentleness, we have to look at Christ. So,
And I think a big gateway to that is like humility, like understanding as Christians. But then let's just take it one step back. We are human.
yeah.
I don't care if somebody, man, there's always going to be circumstances, but like there's going to be moments where you mess up and you don't deserve grace, and other people mess up and you don't want to give grace to them. It's kind of like, for example, I think gentleness also plays a part into forgiveness on how that happens and how you forgive and how you move past things. But gentleness, I feel like, is understanding, like, being gentle at heart is like a big start of it and stuff. And so, I mean, the thing is, like, the servants, it's a parable. Why am I blanking on it? It's Luke something.
Oh, where he gets
Right, he gets forgiven,
pardoned, and then he doesn't pardon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big one, is like a lot of things happen to us and that we just kind of write off when we are forgiven and stuff. But yeah, we can't be gentle when somebody else is in a hard spot as well.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, I mean, like, I think one of the, especially as a Christian, one of the reasons why we should be gentle to others is because ultimately God has been gentle with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're forgiven, so we should forgive others. We've been accepted into the family of God, obviously on the basis of Christ, but we didn't deserve to be accepted. We didn't deserve to be forgiven. We didn't deserve anything that God has given us. And when we look to our enemy, when we look to someone that has wronged us, someone that has, either hurt our feelings, or someone that has done something against us, oftentimes we want to act in the flesh and, pop off or do various things that wouldn't be representing Christ. But, just as Christ says, love your enemies, I think that is one of the ways that Christ is telling us, look, even in those moments, be gentle, because God has been gentle with you.
Mm-hmm. And, that kind of leads into our next way is, in what moments is it hardest for you to be gentle?
You want that first, or you want me? For me, I don't get mad a lot. I don't get upset a lot or anything, because, again, I don't like taking things personal. But I think in those moments, it's definitely, it's definitely hard. And I always have to remind myself that, again, in various situations, you don't know what happened, or even just like.
I think even if you understand the full picture, even if you understand everything.
That's true. And because relationships are valuable, and I don't think, we should allow our anger to get the best of us because something specific happened to us. Even if the situation was exactly as you thought it was and it was done against you, we should be gentle. Because in being gentle, it might restore that person, and I'm not pointing to you, but just in general,
Right.
restore that person and say, dang, he was so gentle to me and I just did that to him.
Right.
Forgive me.
I think that's a big, when, old Christians, man, I'm going to say it over and over again, is they are so judgmental. I mean, some of the people in my family who are even Christian stuff like to use the Bible and twist verses. With me going to school and understanding context now and understanding the Bible, they really can't do that to me anymore. And so when they do it, I'm just like, man, you are so wrong. You are so blinded.
Mm-hmm.
But back to my point is like, if somebody does something completely off-putting to you, and man, you have every right to retaliate back, how much more would it look for you to be gentle in that moment? And gentle is not a weakness. It's not a weakness.
Mm-mm.
And so, in my mind, I think it's more of like a win. Like you're showing God's grace, and you are being so many people. Yeah, I mean, people will bring up like, man, Jesus flipped tables, things like that. But like, Jesus also went about it in certain circumstances where he had every right. Like, he could have not get whipped. He could have not had a crown of thorns put on his head.
And I think the thing with the aspect of Jesus is that, obviously Jesus is God, and he's the second person of the Trinity. But what they were doing in the temple it was obviously done against God, but Jesus was seeing it as being done against the Father.
Right.
Anything done against Jesus in a way just turned the other cheek. Obviously, when it comes to...
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, because, when it comes to the Father, he didn't play, but he came to be a servant.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to show us how to live and also to die a death that he didn't deserve.
Right.
So I think that in that aspect, it is him, I want to go back to the point of what he said. Gentleness isn't weakness. Gentleness is strength. And gentleness isn't devoid of the truth. Gentleness isn't devoid of convictions either. And I think that this circumstance with what Jesus is doing in the temple, overturning the tables, is a show of, Jesus is a very gentle person. He went to the cross. He took the beating. He took the mocking. And yet anything done against the Father, he stood up for.
Right. And, when it goes to, I want to look at it like this also, is like, when the disciples didn't understand and Jesus said, like, man, y'all just don't get it. I mean, Jesus could have just called it quits in that moment. Yeah. And he could have just said, deuces, see y'all later. You're never going to get it. But he was so gentle when he was like, you guys don't get it, but let me go another step. Like, let me do this. Like, bro, patience. 3 years walking with Jesus, if they couldn't get it, man, we're so hard on ourselves that we get mad that we don't get it in like 2 months. But there's people that walked alongside and saw the miracles and still were so blinded by the worldly and things like that. And so,
would you say that, because honestly, like, talking about it now, like, gentleness, it comes with humility. It comes with wisdom. It comes with patience. Would you say that, because I'm thinking about it, the fruits of the Spirit, I feel like they all connect to each other in a way. I can't separate them.
Yeah, I think it all kind of goes together with just kind of God's character as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's going to be times when things are handled certain ways. Like, there's some Proverbs and Psalms you read that you just can't read with, like, you know what I mean? But there's, I think it's 113 or something like that. But, like, David is, man, he's, like, anguished. And he's, like, so you just can't read it softly and stuff. But, like, Jared does a perfect picture of it is when, like, gentleness goes with wrath. And then wrath goes, but.
Let's talk about that.
Well, that'll be too long.
It will be, all right.
Hey, we'll do another episode on God's character. But I think they all just work together like God's character works together. Because the things that God calls us to do, there's a reason that he wants us to do it.
Yeah.
And, I'm drawing a blank, but I read something today, and it was perfect for right now, but I'm pulling a Caleb.
Hey. It's unfortunate. I ain't pulling one now. But,
no, keep going. I can't remember it. It's in James. I know it's in James, but
gentleness. I wanted to emphasize this. you know, I think it takes great strength to be gentle, um, because if we're just carrying around not self controlled,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that takes strength at all. Just like it takes great strength to love someone, especially when it's hardest.
Yeah, I think love, being an action shows out in many different ways. Like
Yeah,
love can be shown out like through forgiveness, through gentleness.
yeah.
So I think it all comes back to love. That's where I was going. Okay, there's a verse in Romans, but this isn't loading, so I don't know the verse. But basically, it just is like it goes back to like our two commandments. Like we can't, right? Jesus says our two commandments: love the
Love God,
Father with all your heart and soul, and then the second was
love your neighbor.
love your neighbor.
Yeah.
But there was, dude, if this doesn't work, I'm gonna go crazy because I have the verse and I just read it this morning.
Dang.
I'm going to my devotion, guys. Don't you worry. This is kind of also awkward because I can't remember what I read this morning. But I think that's like a big part of it is that love has a connection to all things, and so when we love one another, it's truly a blessing to understanding that aspect. And so
I was reading up on gentleness earlier, and you find it?
yeah, Romans.
Say it.
It's Romans.
Well, I was reading up on it,
Yeah, just
and
keep going.
I did want to read this. Gentleness is not weakness, but it's humility and thankfulness towards God and polite, restrained behavior towards others. I didn't write that myself, but that's what I was reading. But I think being gentle also shows in our relationship with God as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, just like humility, honestly, is a big part of gentleness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we can be gentle if we're prideful. I don't think we can be humble if we're not gentle. And in our relationship with God, we do have to have the open arms, and we do have to be able to be humble and gentle in our relationship with God, opening up to Him and saying, God, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it all comes back to the fruits of the Spirit: gentleness, humility, and all
Peace,
everything
love.
else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is what it is. Romans 13, 8 through 10, it says, fulfilling the law through love. Owe no one anything except love each other, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up into this word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does not wrong your neighbor, therefore love is fulfilling of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part right there is, it's all summed up in this word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about gentleness, it's like, how would you respond to yourself in those moments? Like if you messed up, you probably give yourself a lot of grace. Or there's those people that don't give yourself grace. And then maybe you need to understand and reevaluate. Like you need to start loving yourself more and start giving yourself affirmation in those moments. But I think Caleb had a good point, was submitting yourself to the Lord. And I think that's like the first part of even becoming a Christian is submitting yourself. Confess with your mouth, believe in your heart, and then submit that He is Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think another thing too, I want to read Galatians 6:1. It talks about being gentle in our relationship with others, other brothers and sisters in the faith. Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness.
Oh, you should have used that one earlier.
I don't know.
Rookie.
Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. And in our relationships, this is a good example of being able to hold each other accountable, speak the truth, but do it in such a way that it's to restore our brother or our sister in gentleness, back to right standing and gentleness.
Yeah.
And I think Paul models that throughout all of his letters. I mean, everything he did, everything he said was so that the body was built up, so that the body was edified, and so that the body was ultimately more like Christ. And I think with that heart posture and with that goal in mind, with that viewpoint, I think it makes it easier to then be gentle with my brother or gentle with my sister or gentle in my relationships with my parents, like my mom, especially because it could be hard for when it comes to our relationships with our parents. You know, now that's something that I had struggled with. I don't struggle with anymore, thankfully, but that's something I struggled with, and it really back then I started to understand there was pride, and it just comes back to the fact that gentleness, to be gentle, you have to have a humble heart. And you
Yeah.
have to be able to accept what has happened or accept something, understanding that ultimately I was forgiven by God. Ultimately, God has been gentle with me, even if this person doesn't deserve it, or
Right.
even if they do. But even if they don't, I will be gentle because that's what I'm called to.
Yeah. And man, when you talk about families and stuff like that, that always gets me
Yeah.
because I am not gentle with my aunt. I mean, man, I got an aunt and she just like everything she ever talks about is just freaking political, and I just can't do it. And so there's sometimes where I'm not gentle and I'm just like, shut up. And I'm gonna be totally honest because there is times like my family politically is just two different. Like there's two different sides. I'm
Really?
right in the middle, man. I'm like the lesser of two evils. Like who's kind of standing more biblically? And if none of them are standing biblically, then I just don't care. I mean, sometimes I won't even vote.
Really?
Yeah, and it's just because like none of these are gonna glorify God. So why do I care? God's gonna do His thing.
That's another.
Okay.
We'll talk about
We'll
that.
talk about that later. But
keep
politics
going.
for me is just kind of like, man, I hate it. So especially when it comes into family events. And so my aunt is always just, man, like, and she's brutal at times. And man, she's like, you're arrogant, things like this. And there's times where I just submit myself to her level and I just respond how she's responding instead of going in a gentle way. And I think that's a hard part for me is because there's times where I just get annoyed. And I think, man, it's just asking God, like, in those moments, like, help me, like, act like you. Man, in my prayer, I say, let me learn to love like you, forgive like you, and live like you. And I think that's the big part of living like him is, like, if Jesus can be so gentle, humble, like, my man was the son of God, and how humble that dude was to wash other people's feet is, like, to understand is, like,
Crazy.
yeah. And so just being able to be gentle and care about other people the way that we should and we are called to as Christians.
Washing the feet of the people you created. Like, just think about that, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we won't even wash the dishes of our. I don't wash
Man,
my
I don't
sister's
wanna-
dishes, bro. I don't keep it a buck. My little sister, she know, bro. Hey, I wash my mom's dishes for sure. When it comes to my little sister, you on your own, man.
Okay,
And-
wait, you're telling me that you would sift through dishes?
No. So what happens is we're done eating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my little sister,
Oh,
she keeps her
no
dishes.
no shot.
She keeps her dishes. I keep mine. My mom puts her dishes in the sink. I wash them, and she washes hers.
No shot.
What you mean?
Caleb, it's maybe 2 dishes that you have to
Nah,
wash.
bro. It's not. It's not. Trust.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that one off the pot. Oh,
What you
heck
mean?
no.
You like washing dishes?
Man, you better be a servant to your sister.
She knows I'm a servant to her, bro.
It
But
doesn't
when it
sound
comes
like
to when it comes to
dishes,
when it
nope.
comes to dishes, bro, I can't do it. Now if it's my girl or something, I'll wash it. Cause I wash my mom's dishes, bro.
As you should.
I wash my. I
That
don't.
woman gave you life.
I will wash my mom's dishes. I don't care. I will wash them.
Mm.
I will wash them.
So
But when it comes to my sister, I don't know about that.
yeah. So as we close up right now, I think for me, my viewpoint just through this is gonna kind of change. Is like gentleness is through wisdom and through love, and I think that is like understanding like how we navigate a situation and like the way if we're gentle through a moment, we can also change somebody else's viewpoint on Christ if we actually are living through Christ like.
That's good. Yeah, I think for me, I agree. It's exactly what you said. I think it's being able to be humble in situations, no matter the circumstance, and be gentle. Also, knowing that it's not devoid of truth, but even when you speak the truth, even when you are trying to restore a brother or various things like that, it's with the delivery. It's with how you say things. It's with how you do things, how you go about things. And I think it's just everything. It comes back to wisdom, humility. It comes back to wanting to be more like Christ and wanting your brother or your sister to be more like Christ as well. And we're all both learning. still, and we're all both growing. So that's kind of where I come to it.
So, all right. Shout out to C-Mac
C-Mac.
for allowing us to use this space to kind of bring your word out. And, you know, we're praying for you guys every single day. This has actually been a blast. I've kind of missed this, not going to lie.
I know. It's been good.
So
good.
we love you guys. You know, I hope that whatever we say, whatever we do is helping you in your walk. If not, if you have questions about things we say, man, just shoot us a DM. But yeah, I mean, we're here to glorify God and just kind of share our stories and like where we're at with certain things. And so we love you guys. You got anything
Love
else?
you too. I thought you were asking me to say I love you.
I don't know.
Nah. Pretty much close it out. You want to close it out?
Yes, sir. All right. This is Brandon.
Caleb.
Y'all have a
Shimji
great
Caleb
day.
Chuka. We're out.
Y'all have a good one.